Hey there, eager learners.
Yeah.
Ever try to, I don't know, predict the output of one of these machine learning models when you have an actual deadline? Talk about stress.
Yeah.
We are diving into the wild world of AML project management today, and let me tell you, this is not your grandma's Agile.
Right.
We are checking out the latest from the Agile Chronicles Substack. Seriously, if you're not subscribed, folks, hit that button.
Yeah.
Their article, 4 Alternate Project Management Approaches for AML Projects, is a goldmine.
It is a good one.
It is a jungle out there.
Yeah.
More and more companies are diving headfirst into AI and ML, but are they thinking about how to actually manage these projects?
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what makes this article so timely. It highlights how trying to force-fit traditional Agile into AI and ML is, well, it's like trying to teach a robot to do the tango. It's just not going to flow the way you expect.
Yeah.
So why is AML such a different beast when it comes to project management? What are we missing here?
Well, it's like, you can think about traditional software development like building a house, right? You've got blueprints, you know what materials you need. You can actually estimate with some reasonable accuracy what it's going to take. But AML, it's much more like landscaping a garden. I mean, you have a plan, sure, but the data is the soil, it's the weather, it's the pesky squirrels.
Yeah.
It's constantly throwing surprises your way, and your project needs to adapt, right?
Okay. So instead of fixed blueprints, we're talking about adapting to the data's lead.
Yeah.
That sounds like a wild ride.
That's right, yeah.
And that's where traditional Agile starts to crumble. The article calls out some major pitfalls, inaccurate estimations. For one, you can't predict how a model will perform until you train it, and that can take, well, unexpected turns.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like coding a website where you can say, okay, this feature will take 2 weeks. You're dealing with unknowns.
Right.
So if you're trying to stick to a sprint schedule, good luck hitting those deadlines.
Yeah, you're going to have a tough time.
What else does the article flag as kind of a red flag?
Well, one of the big things is that if you stick to those rigid sprints, you can actually stifle experimentation. And that's really the lifeblood of AI and ML.
Right.
Right. I mean, you need to be able to try different models, fine-tune parameters. You constantly have to iterate based on the feedback you get from the data. And traditional Agile, with its emphasis on kind of predefined deliverables, can really box in that kind of exploration.
It's like trying to innovate within a straitjacket.
Yeah, exactly.
The process needs to breathe a little.
It has to have that flexibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole issue of continuous improvement, right? I mean, AI and ML models aren't meant to be static. They're constantly learning and evolving.
Absolutely.
Traditional Agile sprints, with their focus on these short-term cycles, aren't always equipped to handle that ongoing optimization.
That ongoing kind of evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a different approach.
You need a more dynamic approach.
Yeah.
So, if Agile isn't the perfect fit, what does the article suggest? Spill the tea.
Well, it dives into 4, I think, super interesting alternatives. Data Driven Scrum, we can call it DDS.
Good.
Team Data Science Process, TDSP, Hypothesis Driven Development, HDD, and then CPMAI, Cognitive Project Management for AI.
Wow. That's a mouthful.
It is, yeah.
Let's unpack these, starting with DDS. What's the deal with that?
So DDS is like Agile's cooler, more adaptable cuts and runs. It embraces that data-centric nature of AI and ML and allows for flexible timelines and a more iterative approach to development. Imagine you're planning a road trip, right? But the destination might change based on some cool roadside attraction you discover along the way. That's kind of what DDS is like.
Sounds like my kind of road trip.
Yeah.
So it's less about sticking to a rigid plan and more about embracing the unexpected twists and turns the data might throw your way.
Exactly, yeah. You got to be agile in the truest sense of the word.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so we've established that traditional Agile might need a little bit of a, makeover to truly shine in this AML world.
Yeah, a little bit of a refresh.
But let's dive deeper into how these alternative approaches we've teased actually address those project management headaches.
Okay.
You mentioned inaccurate estimations earlier.
Right.
How does, say, DDS tackle that moving target?
So that's where that flexibility really comes into play. Remember how we were talking about data exploration and model tuning?
Right.
Throwing those unpredictable curveballs into your neatly planned sprints.
Yeah.
DDS kind of expects the unexpected. It embraces those tasks, understanding they might take longer than you initially anticipated, and it allows teams to adjust those estimations as they learn more about the data.
So it's less about sticking to a rigid timeline and more about acknowledging that, In AI and ML, you're working with like a data-driven dance partner who likes to improvise a little bit.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And DDS isn't alone in this.
No, not at all.
HDD, with its focus on this hypothesis testing,
Right.
also navigates uncertainty with, like, grace. I mean, imagine you're building a fraud detection system. With HDB, you're constantly testing your assumptions against real-world data.
Yeah.
If something takes longer than expected, it's not a failure.
Right.
It's just another piece of the puzzle,
Exactly.
another data point to inform your next move.
It's all part of the process.
It's almost like treating the entire project as one giant experiment, constantly iterating and adapting based on what you learn.
Yeah, you got it.
Now, another pain point we touched on was the limitations, right? Rigid sprints. They can place on experimentation.
Yeah, they can really stifle it.
These alternative methodologies seem to encourage a more kind of free-flowing approach.
Yeah, for sure.
How so?
Well, take DDS, for example.
Yeah.
You can actually dedicate an entire iteration to just experimenting with different models or tweaking parameters without that pressure of having to deliver a specific feature by, a drop-dead date.
Yeah.
It's really about giving the team the space to breathe, to explore the data, and to let those aha moments kind of emerge organically.
It's like giving your team a playground instead of a factory floor.
I like that, yeah.
Give them the space to play and experiment, and that's where that real innovation happens.
That creative energy can really flow.
Now, we've talked a lot about flexibility and experimentation, but what about the data itself?
Right.
Traditional Agile often prioritizes code delivery,
Yeah.
but in AML, the data is king.
The data is everything.
Isn't it?
It really is.
How do these methodologies kind of address that?
Yeah, they get that right. Like DDS, for instance, it puts data front and center.
Yeah.
Every decision, every iteration, it all revolves around what the data is telling you.
You're not just managing a project, you're managing a valuable, ever-evolving data ecosystem.
Exactly. And TDSP, with those structured workflows, the emphasis on data quality.
Yeah.
It addresses that as well. It has baked in kind of specific stages for data acquisition, preparation, and validation.
Okay.
So you're making sure the data is treated with,
Respect.
it deserves.
Like before you even think about building that amazing AI-powered app, you need to make sure that you're feeding it a 5-star data diet.
100%. And let's not forget CPMAI.
Right.
That one's like, it's like the grand conductor of the AI orchestra. It's taking this bird's eye view of that entire project lifecycle. You're understanding those business needs all the way to operationalizing that final model.
Wow.
Making sure data is considered every step of the way.
It sounds like these alternative approaches really recognize that AI and ML projects are like these living organisms,
Yeah.
They're constantly evolving and adapting.
And that's static.
You can't just force them into like this rigid framework.
You gotta let them breathe.
You need to provide the right environment, the right nutrients, and then just allow them to flourish.
Give them what they need to grow.
It's incredible how these alternative approaches seem to really understand the unique rhythm of AI and ML projects.
Yeah, they get it.
But I'm sure our listeners are itching to know, how do you actually choose the right approach for your specific project?
All right.
It's like standing in a project management aisle with a million different tools and wondering which one's not going to, completely destroy everything.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Where do you even begin to narrow down the choices?
Well, a good place to start is to ask yourself, how much of a trailblazer are you really trying to be with this project?
Okay.
Right?
Well, I like that.
Are you tackling a well-defined problem, one that has very clear requirements, or are you kind of venturing off into uncharted territory?
Okay.
If it's the latter, if you're going off into the unknown, something like HDD with that real emphasis on experimentation and hypothesis testing, that might be your best bet.
So if you're ready to embrace the unknown and let the data lead the way, HDD could be the perfect, adventure buddy.
Yeah, I like that.
What about those projects that require a bit more structure? Where you're not necessarily exploring the wilderness, but you're navigating a well-mapped route.
So in those cases, something like TDSP with its focus on those standardized workflows, that might be a great fit, especially for, larger teams or maybe organizations where having those really clear processes and that documentation is super important. It's kind of like following a recipe. You got your ingredients, you got your measurements, you have a very clear set of instructions that you're going to follow.
It sounds like the key here is to kind of strike that balance, right?
Yeah,
Between structure and flexibility,
find that sweet spot.
depending on what the project actually needs.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked about the nature of the project, but what about the people involved? Like, how does the team's expertise factor into this decision?
Oh, that's huge. You absolutely have to consider your team.
Okay.
If they're already really well versed in, agile principles.
Yeah.
Transitioning to something like DDS might feel like a very natural progression.
Right.
But if you're dealing with a team that's totally new to these concepts, jumping in headfirst with something as, I don't know, comprehensive as CPMAI, it might be a little bit overwhelming for them.
Yeah, you don't want to give them too much too soon.
Exactly. You got to meet them where they are.
Right.
And choose an approach that really plays to their strengths and their existing experience levels.
So it's important to make sure that your team feels empowered, not overwhelmed
100%.
by whatever methodology you've chosen.
Yeah.
And speaking of empowerment, let's not forget about kind of that organizational context.
Right. It's a bigger picture.
Like a larger organization that already has a bunch of established, I don't know, data governance procedures in place.
Right. They've already got their way of doing things.
They might find that TDSP's structured approach
Right.
aligns much more smoothly with their existing workflows than, a more free-flowing methodology like DDS.
It's like trying to fit a new piece into a puzzle.
Right.
You want to make sure it actually fits and complements what's already there.
You don't want to force it.
Exactly.
Now, one last piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
What about, like, the tools and the infrastructure?
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Does that play a role in choosing the right project management approach?
Absolutely. Some methodologies, like if we think about TDSP again, they have very specific tool integrations already built in, while others are a little more flexible.
Yeah.
It's almost like making sure that your hiking gear is appropriate for the terrain.
Okay.
You want sturdy hiking boots if you're going on, a rocky trail, but maybe some lighter footwear will do if it's a nice paved path.
So it's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Choose an approach that aligns with what you've already got, or be prepared to maybe invest in some new tools or adapt your existing ones to make it work.
Yeah. So before you embark on your AML project journey, it's essential to, pack the right tools
100%.
and make sure you have those resources.
Yeah.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground.
So much.
But before we let our listeners go, any final words of wisdom for those who are, about to embark on their own AI and ML adventures?
Just remember that managing these projects, it's a journey. It's not about reaching a specific destination.
Be adaptable, be open to learning from those mistakes, and definitely don't be afraid to kind of iterate and adjust your approach along the way, right? This world is constantly evolving, and so are the best ways to manage the projects that are bringing those innovations to life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a wrap for this deep dive into AML project management. We've explored the limitations of traditional Agile in this brave new world, and, more importantly, we've uncovered some exciting alternative approaches that just might be the key to unlocking your AML project's full potential. From embracing flexibility with DDS to navigating complexity with CPMAI, we've given you a glimpse into the future of project management, where data is king and adaptability is your superpower. Now, if you're ready to ditch those rigid sprints and embrace the dynamic world of AML project management, be sure to check out the Agile Chronicles Substack and their latest article for even more insights. Until next time, happy experimenting.